There's more to the title of a property and due diligence of a property other than a search. So I know that most times when people want to buy a property, they know that, oh, they should carry out a search at the registry of the state, of the land registry of the state where the land is located. So you want to buy a house in Lagos State, for instance, you want to do a search at the registry to know the records of that land at the registry. But is that what it ends? No, it doesn't end there. There's a lot more that is involved when you want to do title due diligence on a property you want to buy or you have even bought. Now, let me explain what title due diligence means, and then I'll explain to you the entire scope of what you should be looking at when you want to buy a property, so that you know that just buying a property because you've done a search and the property, the file was found at the registry doesn't automatically mean that it's safe for you to go ahead with the transaction. Now, when you want to buy property, due diligence are the set of steps that you will take to protect your interest. It includes doing a physical inspection of your property. It includes planning your budget properly, knowing exactly what you are looking for, and a lot of things. And it also includes confirming the ownership of the property you want to buy, so that you are buying the property from the person who actually owns it, or the person selling to you has the authority of the person or individual or company or community, whatever it may be, to sell. Because if you buy something from someone who is not the owner, I mean, it's right. If you take this phone tripod, for instance, if I get it from someone and the person is not the owner, this would be a stolen property, even if I pay. It's the same thing with real estate. I can't sell to you what I don't have. Now, when there are any issues with ownership, what happens when you buy is that you inherit it. So let me give us a practical example. A father died and one of his children sells his property, but that property doesn't belong to the child. Anyone who pays to that child has just given the child free money, because the child is not an owner. Now, when someone dies, you have to establish how inheritance is passed. So was the person governed by native law and custom, or was there a will, or have they applied for letters of administration? It is then you can then establish, okay, this is the owner, and then I can go ahead and buy this property. All right, so now that we've established what title due diligence is, let me tell you what the scope of due diligence covers beyond a search. Now, when you're buying a property, I've had an instance where we're given a document to do a search at the registry, and yes, whilst we did the search and we confirmed that the property was at the registry, I asked, which I often do, I asked my client to ask the seller to do an offer letter. So I wanted to see, how is he going to make payments? Who is he paying to? Now, when it was given another account to pay to, and the name on that account was different from the name of the property, the owner of that property, as we researched from the C of O that we found out, we had to raise questions and say, okay, so what's the relationship? Why is it made to pay to so and so company when it is so and so company that actually owns this property? Now, it was that questioning that I did that then led them to now explain to us and say, oh, there's actually an agreement on this property. So whilst this person owns this property, we reclaimed this land, and because it was a huge project, we have an agreement where we stated how we're going to divide the land between ourselves, how we're going to sell it, and although one party is going to be the one executing, every other party, every other company that has contributed has to be a part of it. So then we have to look at the agreement, look at the terms, ensure that yes, the agreement was actually legit, and then follow the terms stated in that agreement. Because if we had done anything else, if my client has done the purchase any other way, it would have lost his money, although we did a search. So you can see that beyond the search, you want to be sure that you are doing business, you're doing that transaction with the right party. That's number one. Number two is tracing the root of title. So for instance, if you're buying a property from me and I have a certificate of occupancy, or I have a deed of assignment that the governor has given consent to, when we do a search and you see that yes, this document actually exists, it doesn't stop at that. There's something called tracing the root of title. So we want to trace all the previous owners of that property. I've had times where we've had to trace 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 previous owners of the property and look at their documents, because it's not just enough to do registration. Newsflash, that the fact that a document is registered at the registry doesn't cure a defect in that document. Yes, I know you are shocked, but that's the truth. So we have to read through. So oftentimes we're reading 20, 30 pages and reviewing all those documents that were registered at the registry to see, because when you buy a property, every defect in the ownership of the previous owner is going to go to you. So you want to check through and be sure that there are no legal issues involved so that you don't inherit it as an innocent purchaser. All right, I hope that's been helpful. Now, another thing that when it comes to due diligence that we need to take note of, and which is beyond research, is what to do going forward. So usually when we do due diligence in our law firm working with my team, we usually not just do the search and trace the title, look at the party you want to do the transaction with and be sure that you're dealing with the right people. What we also do is to ensure that we let you know, okay, going forward, is it safe for you to go ahead? Are there any legal issues that we call legal encumbrances? If there are legal encumbrances, are they so substantial that would advise you not to go ahead with the property purchase, or there are things that can be rectified? So I'll give us an example once again. We've worked with over 100 clients since setting up our law firm, so I have an abundance of examples. So a client of ours wanted to buy a commercial property, and she had engaged us to do due diligence, not just search. So in the course of doing our search at registry, we found out that there was a mortgage on the property. So that property she wanted to buy had been used to stand as a collateral for a loan, and then we had to start digging. So when she spoke to the seller said, yes, there's a mortgage, but we've paid our loan, and the mortgage should be released. So ideally, when there's a mortgage on a property, when you finish paying your loan, the bank that you borrowed money from will do a deed of release, releasing you from your obligations, and it's usually then registered so that when we check, we'll see, okay, yes, there was a mortgage, but the mortgage has been paid and it's been released. And so we have to reach out to the bank and write them officially and say, these are the details of this transaction, we'd like to confirm, because of course we can't just take on face value what we were told. I am a lawyer and I deal with facts backed up with evidence. So we wrote the bank, yes, we wrote the bank, and then they replied to us and said, yes, we've actually, company, she was buying from a company, has actually paid off the loan, and that we already have a deed of release. They sent us a copy of the deed of release and said, we have actually started the process of registering it at the registry, but it's just at the early stage, because it was about a month interval when they released the documents to when we're doing the search, and that was why we didn't found it. So now that we had a document on record from the bank, we could then say, okay, yes, I could then advise my client and say, based on what we found, then it's safe to go ahead, although there's a mortgage, but we have evidence of a document emanating from the bank saying, we've released this party from the mortgage. This is the deed of release. This is a copy of the deed of release, and we started the process of registering it. So you see, it's very important that beyond the search, you know what next to do. Another example, which I always love to use in instances like this, is when you're buying a property, for instance, and you're buying and paying in installments, you're doing a mortgage arrangement, or you're doing an off-plan arrangement. It is not enough for you to just check that, okay, the party I want to buy this property from has ownership and that there are no legal issues. You need to know how to proceed. So what next to do? And I'll give us another example. So a client of ours wanted to buy a property, and it was an installment payment. And when she reached out to me and said, I want you to do the due diligence on this property on the title, I said, okay, get them to send us these details, send the details of the property. How did they get ownership? That's a simple question that I usually ask, and then we can then get all the answers. How did they get ownership? And I said, now, since you are doing this transaction and it's going to be in installment, you really want to know, before you start committing yourself and paying 20 million, paying 30 million, we want to know what the terms are. So let them send us their draft terms so that we can know exactly what you are going into. It is not when you've done maybe a deposit, you've paid like half, and then you now start getting to know, because in these instances, you're not buying the property outrightly. So the transaction is going to span a period of time. You want to know, how is it going to go? How is payment going to be made? What happens if I default? When the project be delivered? What kind of project am I paying for? What exactly am I getting? You want everything to be spelled out in black and white. So beyond the search, these are the things that you should also pay attention to when you want to buy a property. So definitely you can see that when you are buying a property, your title due diligence goes beyond the search. It covers everything you need to know before you go into that transaction, to ensure that you're putting your hard-earned money to good use, and that the property is scam-free, is not under acquisition. And of course, everything I've said today applies to properties that have registered title, meaning the ownership of the property has a document evidencing it and is registered in the state where that land is situated. So I hope this has been helpful. If you have questions, let me know in the comment section, and I'll be glad to answer them. Remember to click the like button and the subscribe button, and check my channel for more videos like this. And if you would like us to help with doing the title due diligence of your property, there's a link in the description box below. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.